Not too bad. Okay, so next thing we're going to go over is 11.4. 11.4, basically, I'm not going to lie to you guys, has absolutely nothing to do with the rest of this unit, okay? It's just another concept that we have to cover, and since this unit, binomial expansion, is fairly short, we kind of put it in there, okay? And we only have three examples, okay? So what we're going to work on for this one is we are going to find the mean, variance, and standard deviation. Find mean, variance, and standard deviation. So, a couple different terms that you obviously need to know. The first one is the mean. Anyone have any idea what the mean of a data set is? Not the middle. The mean is the average of the data. Variance, V-A-R-I-A-N-C-E, the average of the data. Okay, guys, stop please. The next one is finding something called the variance. Okay, and variance refers to how spread out the data is. Okay, how spread out the data is. There are some steps to finding variance that you will need to memorize. Okay, the first step is to find the mean. So step 1 is to find the mean. Step 2 is for each piece of data, subtract data and the mean. For each piece of data, subtract data and the mean. Step 3 is to square each difference from step 2. Square each difference from step 2. And then your last step, step 4, is to find the average of the squares from step 3. Find the average of the squares from step 3. And that's just to find the variance. So we will get to standard deviation in a minute. But the first thing I'd like you to do for example number 1 is to find the variance. Find the variance of 4, 7, 3, and 2. Find the variance of the data set, and the data I'm giving you is 4, 7, 3, and 2. First thing you're going to do is step 1. You don't have to label the steps, but I'm just going to label them just for these couple examples. So step 1 is to find the average, or find the mean. So you add them all up, 4, 7, 3, and 2, and divide by however many things you added. So how many am I dividing by? 4. Okay? That's going to give you 16 over 4. So the mean of this data is equal to 4. Mean, or the average, is equal to 4. Then step 2, you're going to take whatever the score was, or the data, and subtract the mean. So our data was 4, 7, 3, and 2. And from each of those numbers, you want to subtract the mean. So you're going to do 4 minus 4, 7 minus 4, 3 minus 4, and 2 minus 4. To get those answers, you're going to do 0, a 3, a -1, and a -2. Once you get those, you're going to go to step 3. Okay? And step 3 is you're going to take the square of those values. Okay, so we're going to take each of these values and square it. So 0 squared gives you 0. 3 squared gives us 9. Negative 1 squared equals 1. And negative 2 squared will equal 4. So since you're going to end up squaring these, it doesn't really matter if you take the data minus the mean or the mean minus the data. Okay, because you're going to end up squaring them, you're going to square the difference, and you're going to end up with positive numbers anyways. Okay, then step 4 is to take all of these squares and find the average of them. So you add up all of these, so 0, 9, 1, and 4, and divide by however many things you added, so divide by 4. You add all these together, we got 14 divided by 4, and what is 14 divided by 4? You do need to write it, I would recommend writing as a decimal, okay? So here we would see that the variance, which is what we're trying to find, is equal to 3.5. Okay, you can use a calculator on this, so I do want you to give me decimal answers. Variance is equal to 3.5. Questions on how I did that. So you are going to have to memorize these steps. Okay, all that's going to be on your next test is binomial expansion, which we've already done 3 days of, and then finding the mean, the variance, and then we're going to get to standard deviation next. Okay, it's almost exactly the same. Anyone have questions on how I found variance? Good? Okay, last thing I want to go over, we already went over mean and variance. Now I'm going to go over standard deviation. So standard deviation, the definition of standard deviation is the average distance from the mean. So it's basically the average distance that each data point is from the average. It's a little confusing, but standard deviation. Okay? The way that you find standard deviation is that standard deviation, and I'm just going to abbreviate it as STD-DEV, standard deviation is equal to the square root of the variance. So basically, to find standard deviation, you have to find variance. To find variance, you have to find the mean. So you have to find all of them, even if you're not using them all, or if I'm not asking for them all, when you're finding variance. Okay? So if you look back at for example number 2, I'd like you to look back and find standard deviation of 4, 7, 3, and 2. Do those data points look familiar at all? Hopefully, okay? From example number 1, we got what? That variance equals what? We got that the variance was equal to 3.5. So, the square root of 3.5, yes, you need to do it on a calculator. Okay, and the square root of 3.5 is equal to, okay, it's going to give you this really, really big number. You usually want to round to 2 decimal places. Okay, so unless I tell you differently, round to 2 decimal places. Okay, so the standard deviation is equal to 1.87. That's your answer. So you can't find standard deviation without finding variance. You can't find variance without finding the mean. Questions on how I did that? Okay, we're all done. Or almost all done, sorry. For number 3, okay, say that you are, you guys are going to laugh at this one, but if I ask you to measure the height of your dogs. You have lots of dogs at your house. Okay? Measure the height of your dogs and get, or if you measure the height of your dogs and you get 32 inches, 43 inches, if you think about that, that is an incredibly tall dog. 30 inches, That dog, the way that you measure height on a dog, you actually measure to its shoulders. Okay, the top of its shoulders, not the top of its head. I don't know why I know that, but I do. So if you think about, that's like almost like a 4 foot tall dog at its shoulders. It's a freakishly tall dog. So it's got to be like, it's a small horse. What are those really fun? Oh, Great Dane. It's Great Dane. There you go. So 32 inches, 43 inches, 30 inches, and 15 inches. This is, yeah, it's like Clifford, the big red dog. This one is like a normal sized dog, okay? These ones are still pretty freakishly tall. But 15 inches, that's like, you know, that's normal.
That's normal.
That's like a, I don't know what kind of dog. No, I don't think a lab is.
That's like a foot.
This is like just over a foot, so I don't know, like a, no, not a chihuahua. Really, a chihuahua is not a foot tall. That's like a boxer. It's like a boxer. Like a boxer, yeah. There we go. This one could maybe be like, I don't know, a lab or something. I don't know. Sorry. Okay, so here we go. So I would like you to find, I want you to find the mean, variance, and standard deviation. Find the mean, the variance, and standard deviation. Find the mean, the variance, and standard deviation. So, first thing you want to do is find the mean. Okay, so find the mean, add them all up, and divide by however many things you're adding. So, 32, 43, 30, and 15. And what are you going to divide by? 4, okay? Even if you had, obviously it can't happen the height of dogs, but if one of your data points is 0, you count that, okay? So like if you had added a 0 in here, you'd be dividing by 5. So just keep that in mind. If you add all that together, we get 120 divided by 4, so the mean, or the average height of these dogs is 30. Thank you. Then to find the variance, okay, so that's the first part. So the mean is 30. Variance, you take the height of each dog and subtract the mean. So we have 32 minus 30, 43 minus 30, 30 minus 30, and 15 minus 30. So take each piece of data, subtract the mean. It's going to give you 2, 13, 0, negative 15. Then take each one of these and square it. So 2 squared is 4. 13 squared is 169. 0 squared is 0. And negative 15 squared is 225. Then we want to add all these together. So if you add those all together, you don't have to do it in like a separate step. You can just add right here because they're already in a column. You get 398. And how do we find the variance? Divide by 4, right? So we're actually finding the average of those. So 398 divided by 4. The variance is 99.5. So variance is 99.5. No. Then to find the standard deviation, you have to square root that. Okay. Standard deviation, if you do the square root of 99.5 on your calculator, you're going to get, Nikki, stop. Square root of 99.5 is equal to 9.974. Okay, we're just going to say, let's think about this rationally, okay? That's approximately 10. Okay, so instead of writing 9.97, that's a little too close. So I would write standard deviation is approximately, that's approximately 10.
What is that?
Is that an int?
It's in a, like those, one of those squiggly things. Approximately. Okay. Standard deviation is approximately 10 inches. Okay. You need to, if you write 9.97, that's fine, but you have to read the question. Okay. This one, it would probably ask you, what is the standard deviation to the nearest inch? Okay, so make sure you read the question. Okay, if we're talking about inches, like there's pretty much no way you can measure 9.97 inches, okay? It's 10. So it's approximately 10. Homework for this, Guys, listen for just a sec. Homework for this is going to be worksheet 4 in your worksheet packets, or excuse me, in your green books, the worksheet books. Okay, get it done. You're doing 1 through 15. Tomorrow we will be checking these, and that's it. I'm